Every starship wants a human, even if it might kill them, Captain. Zara Vex stood on the bridge of her ship, the Stellar Dawn, watching the swirling nebula outside her viewport with practiced indifference. As a Krillian, she possessed 4 arms, silver-scaled skin, and the natural tactical brilliance that made her species legendary commanders. Her crew respected her, feared her when necessary, and followed her orders without question. Everything was perfectly ordered, predictably efficient, exactly how she preferred it. Captain, her first officer, Commander Thane, approached with obvious hesitation. The reptilian Saurian's forked tongue flicked nervously. Admiral Corax has sent new orders. We're to take on a special crew member for the mission to the Helix sector. Zara's 4 eyes narrowed. The Helix sector was notorious, a lawless region where ships disappeared and captains who ventured too deep were never seen again. What kind of special crew member? Thane's scales shifted to a darker hue, betraying his discomfort. A human. Captain, a tactical specialist named Marcus Chen. The bridge fell silent. Every species in the galaxy knew about humans. Their reputation preceded them like a violent storm. They were emotional, unpredictable, and worst of all, they had an unsettling habit of surviving situations that should have killed them. Most captains who hired humans did so out of desperation, and many regretted it. Yet somehow, those same captains often found themselves seeking out humans again. Absolutely not, Zara said flatly. I've heard the stories. Humans are chaos incarnate. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They're dangerous. The Admiral was quite insistent, Thane replied, handing her a datapad. He said, and I quote, "Trust me, Vex. You'll understand once you're in the field." Zara read the orders twice, her primary hands gripping the pad while her secondary hands gestured her frustration. Marcus Chen's file was surprisingly brief. Former Earth Defense Force, specialized in impossible rescues, currently freelancing as a tactical consultant. His success rate was remarkable, but the reports accompanying his missions read like fever dreams. Improvised solutions, split-second decisions that defied all tactical doctrine, and an alarming tendency to throw himself into danger without hesitation. "When does he arrive?" she asked, resignation creeping into her voice. "His transport docks in 30 minutes. Zara spent those 30 minutes pacing her ready room, trying to understand why the Admiral would saddle her with such a liability. She'd built her reputation on precision, on calculated risks and methodical planning. Adding a human to her crew felt like introducing a virus into a perfectly functioning system. The docking bay alert chimed, and Zara reluctantly made her way to greet her new crew member. She expected to find some battle-scarred warrior, probably cocky and loud like the humans in the stories. Instead, she found herself face-to-face with a man who looked almost ordinary. Marcus Chen was tall for a human, with dark hair and intelligent brown eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He carried himself with quiet confidence, but there was something else, a careful control that suggested depths beneath the surface. When he smiled and extended his hand in the human greeting gesture, Zara felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "Captain Vex? I'm Marcus. Thank you for having me aboard." His voice was warm, genuine, and completely at odds with everything she'd expected. As their hands touched, her scaled skin against his surprisingly warm flesh, Zara felt a jolt of something she couldn't quite identify. It wasn't fear, though perhaps it should have been. "Welcome aboard the Stellar Dawn," she managed, pulling her hand back perhaps a moment too quickly. "I trust you're prepared for the challenges ahead?" Marcus's smile widened slightly, and there was something almost knowing in his expression. "Captain, I've learned that the best preparation for the unknown is to expect the unexpected. I have a feeling this mission is going to be very interesting." As Zara led him through the ship's corridors, introducing him to the crew, she couldn't shake the feeling that her ordered world was about to become very complicated indeed. The way Marcus moved, the way he observed everything with those keen eyes, the way he seemed completely unafraid despite being surrounded by alien beings. It was unsettling and fascinating in equal measure. By the time they reached his quarters, Zara had made a decision. She would keep Marcus at arm's length, treat him as just another crew member, and complete this mission with minimal disruption to their routine. It was a good plan, logical and sensible. She had no idea how wrong she was about to be. 3 days. Into their journey toward the Helix sector, Zara's carefully maintained distance from Marcus was proving more difficult than expected. The human had integrated into her crew with surprising ease, but not in the way she'd anticipated. Rather than causing chaos, he seemed to bring out the best in everyone around him. During the morning briefing, she watched as he listened intently to each department head's report, asking thoughtful questions that revealed insights others had missed. When Engineer Koloth, a notoriously gruff Tellurian, mentioned concerns about the ship's power distribution, Marcus had suggested a modification that increased efficiency by 12%. When Communications Officer Lyra worried about maintaining contact in the sector's electromagnetic storms, Marcus had worked with her to develop a new relay protocol. "He's not what I expected," Commander Thane admitted privately as they watched Marcus work with the navigation team. "The crew actually likes him," Zara had noticed. More troubling, she was beginning to like him too. Marcus had a way of making her laugh during their strategy sessions, his dry humor cutting through the tension of mission planning. When he spoke about tactics, his unconventional thinking challenged her in ways she found both frustrating and exhilarating. The evening before they reached the sector's edge, Zara found herself in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars and trying to sort through her confusion. She'd always prided herself on understanding people. It was essential for command. But Marcus remained an enigma. "Beautiful view." His voice came from behind her, and she turned to find him approaching with 2 cups of tea. "I didn't hear you. Come in," she said, accepting the cup gratefully. Light footsteps. "Comes with the territory." He settled into the chair beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something earthy and warm that made her acutely aware of his presence. "What territory is that?" she asked, genuinely curious about his past. Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. "Growing up on a frontier colony, you learn to move quietly when raiders might be listening." His expression grew distant. "My family. We lost our home when I was 15. Pirates hit our settlement. I was the only one who made it to the shelter in time." Zara felt her heart clench with unexpected sympathy. "I'm sorry." "It taught me something important," Marcus continued, his voice steady despite the pain in his eyes. "Sometimes the difference between life and death isn't about following the rules. Sometimes you have to be willing to break them, to do things others won't to survive. Is that why you do what you do? The impossible rescues?" Marcus turned to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "I do it because everyone deserves a chance to make it home, even when the odds say they won't." In that moment, something shifted between them. The careful professional distance Zara had maintained crumbled, replaced by a connection that felt both dangerous and inevitable. She found herself leaning slightly closer, drawn by the magnetic pull of his presence. "Captain," Marcus said softly, "I should probably mention something." "What's that?" "I know what you've heard about humans, the stories, the warnings. Most of them are true." His eyes searched hers. "We are unpredictable. We do make decisions based on emotion. We are dangerous, especially to ourselves." "Then why are you telling me this?" Marcus reached out, his fingers barely brushing against her scaled hand. The touch sent electricity through her entire being. "Because you deserve to know what you're getting into, with the mission, and with me." Before Zara could respond, the ship's alert klaxon blared and Commander Thane's voice crackled over the comm. "All senior staff to the bridge. We have a situation." They rushed to the bridge together, where the main screen showed a distress signal's origin point. A passenger transport was under attack by raiders just inside the Helix sector. Exactly the kind of situation they'd been sent to investigate. 27 minutes until we're in weapons range, Thane reported. "But Captain, that ship won't last 10 minutes against those raiders." Zara's mind raced through the tactical options. Every logical choice led to the same conclusion. By the time they arrived, the transport would be debris. There was no way to save those people. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, stepping closer to her command chair. "There might be a way." She looked at him, seeing that familiar fire in his eyes, the same quality that made humans so feared and so valuable. "Tell me." "It's crazy. Probably impossible. Definitely against regulations." He paused, meeting her gaze. "But it might work." As Marcus outlined his plan, Zara felt her world tilt on its axis. Everything she'd believed about proper command, about careful calculation and measured risk, was being challenged by this human who stood before her with absolute confidence in an impossible solution. "You're right," she said finally. "It is crazy." Marcus smiled, and the expression transformed his entire face. "Captain, the best plans usually are." Looking into his eyes, Zara made a decision that would change everything. "Do it." Part 3. Into the Fire. Marcus's plan was elegant in its audacity. Instead of approaching the Raider formation directly, they would use the sector's notorious electromagnetic storms as cover, diving through the chaotic energy fields that normally spelled doom for any ship foolish enough to enter them. The stellar dawn would emerge directly behind the Raiders, giving them the element of surprise and precious extra minutes to mount a rescue. "This is insane," Engineer Koloth muttered as he rerouted power to the shields. "These storms have destroyed ships twice our size. That's why it might work," Marcus replied, his hands dancing over the tactical console. "They won't expect anyone to be crazy enough to try it." Zara watched him work, marveling at the transformation. The quiet, thoughtful man she'd been getting to know had been replaced by someone else entirely, a warrior who moved with deadly precision and absolute certainty. This was the human the galaxy whispered about, the one that made even hardened veterans nervous. "Shield configuration optimal," he reported. "But Captain, I need to warn you. Once we enter those storms, I'll be flying on instinct. I can't predict every variable." "I trust you," Zara heard herself say, and meant it completely. The look Marcus gave her was worth every risk they were about to take. The first shockwave hit them like a giant's fist, sending the entire crew stumbling. The lights flickered as electromagnetic pulses washed over their hull. On the main screen, angry red energy danced and writhed like living fire. "Hull integrity holding," reported the damage control officer, though his voice was tight with strain. Marcus stood at the helm, his body swaying with the ship's movement as if he were dancing with the storm itself. Zara found herself mesmerized by the sight, the way his muscles tensed and relaxed, the fierce concentration on his face, the absolute confidence in his movements despite the chaos around them. "Coming up on the exit point," he called out. "Everyone, hold tight." The ship bucked and rolled as they burst from the storm directly into the Raider formation. 3 sleek attack vessels were circling the damaged transport like sharks around wounded prey. The Raiders' surprise was absolute. They scattered in confusion, giving the Stellar Dawn the opening they needed. "Weapons free," Zara commanded, and her crew responded with devastating efficiency. But Marcus was already moving beyond the immediate tactical situation. While the weapons teams engaged the Raiders, he was coordinating a complex rescue operation, directing the transport bay teams and medical personnel with the kind of multi-layered thinking that made Zara's head spin. "Transport's hull is breaching," Communications Officer Lyra reported. 43 life signs aboard. "Emergency beaming protocols," Marcus ordered, his fingers flying over the controls. "Koloth, I need you to boost the transporter power by routing through the deflector array." "That's not how the system works," the engineer protested. "It is now," Marcus replied with a grin that was equal parts charming and terrifying. "Trust me." As the battle raged around them and the rescue operation proceeded with clockwork precision, Zara felt something she'd never experienced before. Watching Marcus orchestrate the impossible, seeing him risk everything for strangers he'd never met, she realized she was falling in love with the most dangerous man in the galaxy. The last of the Raiders fled as the final group of survivors materialized. In their transport bay, the rescue was complete. But Marcus wasn't finished. He was already analyzing the Raiders' attack patterns, identifying their base of operations, planning their next move. The attack was too coordinated, he explained as the senior staff gathered in the conference room. These aren't random pirates, someone's organizing them, targeting specific ships. If we can find their command structure, we complete our real mission, Zara finished, understanding immediately. This was why the Admiral had insisted on a human, not just for the rescue, but for the kind of thinking that could see patterns others missed. It's going to be dangerous, Marcus warned. More dangerous than today. Zara looked around the table at her officers. She could see the mixture of respect and wariness in their eyes as they looked at Marcus. He'd saved dozens of lives today, but he'd also proven exactly how unpredictable and dangerous humans could be. Commander Thane, she said formally, what's your assessment of our tactical situation? The Saurian scales shifted thoughtfully. Honestly, Captain, following Marcus's plan today was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. It defied every principle of sound tactics. He paused, his forked tongue flicking out. It was also brilliant. If we're going to stop whatever's happening in this sector, we'll need that kind of thinking. After the meeting, Zara found herself alone with Marcus, in the corridor outside the conference room. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a strange mixture of exhilaration and vulnerability. That was... she began, then stopped, not sure how to finish. Completely insane, Marcus suggested, stepping closer to her. I was going to say incredible. She looked up into his eyes, seeing her own reflection there. You saved 43 lives today. We saved them, he corrected gently. I couldn't have done any of that without your crew, without your trust. The space between them seemed to shrink without either of them moving. Zara was acutely aware of everything about him, the way his chest rose and fell, the warmth radiating from his skin, the intensity in his dark eyes. Marcus, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I know, he replied, understanding everything she couldn't say. I feel it too. When he reached up to touch her face, his fingers tracing the silver scales of her cheek, Zara closed her eyes and let herself fall into the impossible, dangerous, beautiful connection growing between them. Tomorrow they would face whatever was waiting for them in the depths of the Helix sector. Tonight she would let herself believe that sometimes the most dangerous risks were worth taking. Part 4. Heart of Darkness. The Raider base hung in the shadow of a dead planet, a massive construct of salvaged ships and stolen technology welded together into something that looked more like a mechanical cancer than a space station. Intelligence gathered from the rescued transport passengers had led them here, to the heart of the operation that had been terrorizing the Helix sector. 47 ships, Commander Thane reported grimly as they maintained their position behind a cluster of asteroids. And that's just what we can see. The base could be hiding twice that many. Zara studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. Every conventional approach ended the same way, with the stellar dawn overwhelmed and destroyed. They needed something else, something impossible. There, Marcus said quietly, pointing to a section of the base that looked like it had been built from the hull of an old cargo hauler. Service bay, if we can get a small team inside. The shields are overlapping, Navigation Officer Kess interrupted. No way to penetrate without triggering every alarm they have. Marcus smiled, that dangerous smile that made Zara's hearts race. Not necessarily. What if we don't try to hide? Over the next hour, Marcus outlined a plan so audacious it took Zara's breath away. They would approach openly, transmit false identification codes claiming to be pirates with captured cargo to trade. While the base was distracted by the deception, a small infiltration team would slip aboard and disable the shields from within. The team will be completely cut off, Thane pointed out. If something goes wrong, then we adapt, Marcus said, simply. It's what humans do. Zara knew what he was really saying. He was volunteering to lead the infiltration team, to walk into the heart of enemy territory with no backup and no guarantee of escape. The thought of losing him made her feel physically ill. I should lead the team, she said, knowing even as she spoke that it was the wrong choice tactically. "Captain," Marcus said gently, "you know that's not the best option. This is what I do." The final team consisted of Marcus, Chief Security Officer Vex, no relation to Zara, despite the shared name, and Engineer Koloth. As they prepared to depart, in a modified shuttle, Zara found herself alone with Marcus in the shuttle bay. "I want you to know," she said, struggling to find the right words. "These past few days, you've changed everything for me." Marcus stepped closer, his hands finding hers. "Zara, I need to tell you something. After my family died, I never thought I'd feel this way about anyone again. I built walls around my heart, told myself it was safer to stay alone. And now? Now I'm terrified," he admitted with a laugh that held no humor. "Because I'm falling in love with an incredible, brilliant, beautiful woman, and I'm about to do something that might get me killed." The words hung between them, a confession that changed everything and nothing at once. Zara felt tears threatening to fall from her 4 eyes, emotions threatening to overwhelm her careful control. "Then don't go," she whispered. "You know I have to." When he kissed her, it was with a desperate intensity that spoke of all the things they couldn't say, all the tomorrows that might never come. Zara poured everything into that kiss, her fear, her love, her desperate hope that somehow they would find a way through this. "Come back to me," she whispered against his lips. "Always," he promised. The infiltration began flawlessly. The Stellar Dawn approached the base broadcasting pirate identification codes Marcus had somehow acquired during his freelance career. The base's traffic controllers, expecting another group of raiders with fresh plunder, waved them through the outer defenses. Meanwhile, Marcus's team slipped through the service bay undetected, their modified environmental suits disguising their biosignatures. Zara watched their progress through the infiltration sensors, her hands clenched so tightly her claws were cutting into her palms. "First checkpoint cleared," Marcus's voice crackled through the comm, barely audible through the base's interference. The shield generators were located deep in the base's core, surrounded by maze-like corridors that had been added piecemeal over years of expansion. Marcus led his team through the chaos with an almost supernatural ability to navigate the confusion, as if he could sense the right path through pure instinct. But as they approached their target, everything went wrong. "Alarm!" Koloth's voice exploded through the comm. "They know we're here." The tactical display erupted with warnings as the base's defensive systems came online. Dozens of fighter craft poured from hidden bays, while the main guns swiveled toward the Stellar Dawn. "Marcus, get out of there," Zara commanded, but the EU comm channel was nothing but static. "Captain, we need to withdraw," Thane urged. "If we stay, we'll be destroyed." Zara stared at the display, watching the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Every tactical manual ever written said the same thing: retreat, regroup, find another way. But Marcus was in there, along with 2 of her crew members, and she would not abandon them. "Negative," she said firmly. "We hold position." "Captain?" "You heard me, Commander. We hold." Deep inside the enemy base, Marcus crouched behind a bulkhead as energy bolts sizzled past his head. Security forces were converging on their position from all directions, and their only exit was blocked. "Any bright ideas, human?" Vex asked, his weapon charged and ready. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, letting his mind work through the impossible situation. Then he smiled. "As a matter of fact, yes. But you're really not going to like it." What happened next would become legend among the crew of the Stellar Dawn. Instead of trying to fight their way out, Marcus led his team deeper into the base, straight toward the reactor core. Using his knowledge of improvised explosives and Koloth's engineering expertise, they began setting charges that would create a cascade failure. "You want to blow up the entire base?" Vex asked incredulously. "Not the entire base," Marcus corrected. "Just enough to disable their shields and create a distraction." The explosion, when it came, lit up the sector like a newborn star. The base's shields flickered and died as secondary explosions rippled through its structure. In the chaos that followed, the Stellar Dawn struck with surgical precision, crippling the Raider fleet's command ships and sending the survivors fleeing into the void. When the shuttle finally docked with debris still falling around them, Zara was waiting in the bay. Marcus emerged from the craft singed, exhausted, but alive, and she threw herself into his arms with a force that would have knocked a lesser man off his feet. "Don't ever do that to me again," she whispered fiercely. "I'll try," he replied, holding her close. "But you knew what you were getting into with me." Looking up into his eyes, seeing the love and devotion there, Zara realized that she had indeed known. She'd fallen in love with a man who would always run toward danger, who would always risk everything for others, who embodied everything that made humans both terrifying and invaluable. And she wouldn't change a thing about him. Part 5. Coming. Home 6 months later, the Stellar Dawn docked at Starbase Aurora, their mission in the Helix sector complete and their reputation as one of the most effective crews in the fleet firmly established. The Raider network had been dismantled, the sector was safe for civilian traffic, and Marcus had been offered a permanent commission with a promotion to full lieutenant commander. Standing in her ready room, Zara watched the bustle of the starbase through her viewport and tried to sort through the mixture of pride and anxiety churning in her chest. Their success had attracted attention from Fleet Command, and with attention came new opportunities and new challenges. "Captain," Marcus said from the doorway, and she turned to find him holding 2 cups of the Andorian coffee she'd grown fond of during their extended mission. "Thank you," she said, accepting the cup and gesturing for him to sit. Over the months, these quiet moments together had become precious to her, stolen time between the demands of command and the constant danger of their work. "The crew manifest for our next assignment came through," Marcus said, settling into his favorite chair. "We're being assigned to the Exploration Division. Deep space, first contact situations, mapping unknown sectors." "Excited?" Zara asked, though she could already see the answer in his eyes. "It's exactly the kind of work I've always wanted to do," Marcus admitted. "But there's something I need to discuss with you first." Zara felt her heart skip a beat. Over the past months, their relationship had deepened beyond anything she'd ever experienced. They'd found ways to balance their professional responsibilities with their personal feelings, but she'd always known that eventually they would have to face the reality of their situation. "Fleet Command has offered me my own ship," Marcus continued. "The Meridian, an exploration vessel. They want me to take command of a mixed-species crew for long-range reconnaissance." The coffee cup slipped from Zara's suddenly nerveless fingers, shattering on the floor. This was what she'd been dreading, the moment when Marcus's talent and reputation would take him away from her. That's wonderful," she managed to say. "You deserve it. You've more than earned it." Marcus stood and moved to kneel beside her chair, his hands covering hers. "Zara, I haven't given them an answer yet." "Why not?" she asked, though her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Because I'm in love with you," he said simply. "Because the thought of being on a ship without you, of waking up every morning without seeing your face, feels like slow death." Zara stared at him, her mind struggling to process what he was saying. "But the Meridian, it's everything you've worked for." "No," Marcus said firmly. "Everything I've worked for is right here, right now, with you. Ships and commands and promotions don't matter if I'm not with the person I love." Before Zara could respond, her door chimed. "Come," she called out, and Commander Thane entered, his expression excited. "Captain, I apologize for the interruption, but Admiral Corex just contacted me directly. He wants to see you and Lieutenant Commander Chen immediately." The Admiral's office was a study in controlled chaos, with charts and tactical displays covering every available surface. Admiral Corex himself was the imposing figure, a member of the warrior caste of the Draconic Imperium, with scales that shifted from deep purple to burnished gold in the light. "Captain Vex, Lieutenant Commander Chen," he rumbled in his deep voice. "Please sit." They took the offered chairs, and Zara tried to read the Admiral's expression. In the months since their assignment began, she'd rarely interacted with him directly, but she'd heard he was a fair leader who valued results over politics. "Your work in the Helix sector has not gone unnoticed," Corex continued. The Raider network you dismantled had been terrorizing shipping lanes for over 3 years. The lives you saved, the peace you brought to that region. It's exactly the kind of work the fleet needs more of. Thank you, sir, Zara replied formally. Which brings me to why I asked you both here. The Admiral activated a holographic display, showing a sleek modern starship. The Harmony, brand new, built specifically for long-range exploration and first contact scenarios. She's got the most advanced sensors, the best diplomatic facilities, and a mixed-species crew handpicked for their ability to work together. Zara felt her breath catch. The ship was beautiful, clearly designed for the kind of work she'd always dreamed of doing. I'm offering you joint command, Corex continued, looking between them. Captain Vex as commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Chen as first officer and chief tactical specialist. You'll be exploring the far reaches of the galaxy, making first contact with new species, mapping unknown regions. Joint command? Marcus asked, his voice carefully neutral. Your partnership has been unprecedented, the Admiral replied, with what might have been a smile. Individually, you're both exceptional officers. Together, you're something special. The fleet has decided that certain ships, certain missions require a different approach to command structure. Zara looked at Marcus, seeing her own amazement reflected in his eyes. They were being offered the chance to serve together, to explore the unknown while building something beautiful between them. There is one condition, Corex added. The mission will be long-term, 5 years minimum, possibly longer. You'll be out of regular contact with Fleet Command, making decisions on your own authority. It's not an assignment for everyone. When do we leave? Zara asked, and felt Marcus's hand find hers. Second thoughts? Marcus asked, moving to stand beside her.